So if you're setting up a home recording studio, a virtual piano is probably something that you're going to need. Most of the people I think that are going to come to this site are probably interested in virtual pianos. There's sort of two ways that you can go with a virtual piano. Most virtual pianos come with a standalone module. So what you get is you get a piano sound that you can play from your keyboard, and you can do it in two ways. You can either use a standalone module, you're not trying to record anything, you just want to play the piano. So you use the standalone module and you play. Or you go into your digital audio workstation and you pull it up as a virtual instrument and now you record. So let's talk about virtual pianos and how they work. The first virtual piano that I want to talk about is called the Garritan Abbey Road CFX Concert Grand Piano. The Garritan Abbey Road CFX Concert Grand is based on a Yamaha CFX 9-foot concert grand piano from Studio One in London, UK, and it's a 133 gigabyte library, and that's just for one piano. So that's the reason why it's first in my list. That's absolutely phenomenal. One of the reasons this is true is because when they were recording the piano, the recording engineers couldn't agree on which microphones to use, whether to go old school or modern. They said, well, do we use the new Neumann mics, or, I like the old Neumann mics because they've got a certain sound to them that you just can't, yeah, but there are these new microphones. And then somebody had the idea, you know what, guys, we don't need to argue over this. Let's use them all. So that's what they did. And when I show you how they mic the piano, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And you can control these in the app, which is just phenomenal. As a matter of fact, they actually duplicated how Glenn Gould mixed his 1981 recording of the Goldberg Variations BWV 988, and that is a preset that you can use in the app. So when you're ready to get your Glenn Gould on, all you got to do is use the app here. Now I'm pretty sure, I don't know if Glenn Gould used the Yamaha. He likes the Steinway. He likes to regulate the hammers really super close to the keys. You can always tell it's Glenn Gould playing Bach because once in a while you'll hear the hammers double hit because the let off is so close to the keys. That's so he could play it faster, right? So it's a great piano. It absolutely just growls. On the left, you see the Yamaha CFX 9-foot concert grand. I have not always been a Yamaha fan, and I think that's because I've been playing some of the inferior Yamahas that are mass-produced. Invariably, I'll be playing them in a, with a tile floor and a bunch of flat walls around, and so the sound is just so shrill it made my hair curl. But when I sat down and played the Yamaha CFX, it just growls. It's absolutely amazing, the power of the sound. You play Rachmaninoff Etudes Tableau on this thing, and please forgive me for murdering the French language, but wow, it is absolutely so powerful. It's fantastic. And then in the bottom right, that's what the program looks like when you pull it up. You can see that you can control all sorts of things, and this is just one screen. You can go through all kinds of different screens and say, look, I want it on half stick. I want to close the lid. You can say, I want to stick my head inside the case, and that's how I want the listener to hear my music. Or I want to hear it from the bench. Or I want to hear it just to the side. Or I want to hear it from the audience, kind of way in the back. Then there's the hall you're playing in. You can say, I want to play it in a concert hall. No, I want to play it in a bathroom. Or I can play it. You can just define all of this stuff, which is what makes this incredibly unique. How do they do this? Well, that's an even more interesting story, because in order to do this, they need to play every single note on the piano, and they need to play every note at every conceivable different acceleration, at every possible permutation of sustain lengths. They need to play it with dampers up, dampers down. They need to play it una corda, or with all three strings. They need to play it half pedal, three-quarter pedal, etc. And how do they do that? Well, they actually have a machine that will press the keys for you, and it will control the exact amount of acceleration on each key so that it's a controlled environment, and that's why it takes so long to record this. And if you look in the top right picture here, you'll see that how they did the microphones, and it's just so crowded in there, but it's because they got all these different types of microphones, and you can control all these microphones in the app. So that's just cool. And in the bottom right, you'll see just kind of an example of what the app looks like. So it's very realistic. You can actually peer in into what the studio looks like as you're flipping all these switches and doing this stuff. It's like you're sitting right there in the studio, which is just neat. The other thing that you don't see is you don't see the additional microphones that are from the perspective of the audience. So they're outside of the camera view in the top right. And then from the perspective of the player, which is at the bench, you have that control as well. Now, another one of my favorites is the Synthogy Ivory 2 American Concert D. This one is absolutely phenomenal because it's a 49 gigabyte library, again, just for one piano. And it's sampled from a very, very unique piano of historical significance. It is a Steinway D grand piano, which is a 9-foot concert grand that is from Carnegie Hall, New York, New York. And as they were taking it out of Carnegie Hall, they moved it to François Bernier Concert Hall at Le Domaine Forget in the Charlevoix region of Quebec. Again, pardon me for murdering the French language, but in any case, you'll recognize the sound of this piano because this is the piano that Glenn Gould performed on, as well as Rudolf Serkin and a bunch of others. When you hear this piano, the reproduction of this is so realistic, you'll get goosebumps on your arms because you'll say, you know what, I recognize that. Vladimir Horowitz played that piano. Wow. They carefully and completely restored this piano to like new before it was sampled, and then they sampled this, and when they sampled this, they sampled it with 20 different discrete velocities. It's absolutely phenomenal the way they did it. And if you know your Steinways, and this is kind of a test, right? A lot of you classical music buffs and piano buffs, when you look at the logo on this, you should recognize that this is actually a restored 1951 Steinway D that you're looking at. That's the piano that they sampled. There's another one that I really like from Synthogy Ivory 2. If you notice that I'm leaving out pianos from Synthogy, you're right. If you notice that I'm leaving out the pianos that won awards from Synthogy, you're also right. The reason is because they won those awards early on, and for some reason, when they came out with the Studio Grands, which in my opinion walked all over the first set of pianos that they came out with, they didn't win an award for that, and I don't get that because the Studio Grands pianos were phenomenal. Maybe it was because they weren't 9-foot pianos, but this library is a 112 gigabyte library for just 2 pianos. That's like 60 some gigabytes each. Absolutely mind-boggling. The first one is a Steinway B grand piano. I'm very partial to that piano. The reason I'm partial to the Steinway B is because, in my humble opinion, sitting at the bench of a Steinway D piano, the sound isn't musical, it's overpowering. Now, at the audience, it's fine. But at the bench, it's too much. And if you compare that to the sound at the bench of a Steinway B, which is 6 feet 7 inches, it is amazing. So the Steinway B grand piano that they sampled is Power Station New England Studio in Waterford, Connecticut. And they also sampled a Bösendorfer 225, which is also 7-foot piano at Firehouse Recording Studios in Pasadena, California. And you'll recognize that sound from Beach Boys, from a lot of other songs that you've heard recorded, because that's the exact piano that they used. And for each of these pianos, they were created using 24 discrete velocity levels. The one that won an awards, they had a Steinway D, an Imperial Bösendorfer, a Fazioli 305. You know, they're like 4 pianos in the collection. And I think that part of the reason they won the award is because they give you so many pianos, and the pianos themselves are very impressive, and that's great. But for 4 pianos, it was 67 gigabytes. So in terms of realism, that's why they did not make my cut. Just not realistic. These 2 pianos, very realistic. And of course, once again, you know that when I have to give you an example of a Steinway B, I'm going to show you the Steinway B that I had. This was my Steinway B. Absolutely love the sound of it. The Bösendorfer piano, that's an incredible sounding piano. I've played a couple of different sizes of Bösendorfers, and I've played the Imperial Bösendorfer. My impression of playing it is the Renner action makes me want to scream. Using the damper pedal on a Bösendorfer makes me want to kill someone, because the travel on that pedal is about ½ an inch and you're at full damper. How the hell are you supposed to play Bach and do half damper? What are you going to move the pedal ½ a centimeter? I do not understand how people ever learn to play a Bösendorfer and get any sort of sound that remotely resembles music out of it. There are better people than I am. So hats off to you, Valentina Lisitsa. My God, you are a magician, okay? But I can't do it. But here's what I can do. What I can do is when I want that sound that makes me think of Valentina Lisitsa, aside drinking 14 cups of coffee until I'm flapping like a fish and my hands are shaking and I'm really ready to attack Rachmaninoff Concerto and play it twice as fast as any human being has ever moved their fingers, I can sit down at my Yamaha N2, which has a very different action and a very different responding pedal, and I can play it. Then I can take the MIDI and I can run it through the Bösendorfer so I get the sound and I don't have to deal with the pedal, and I definitely don't have to deal with the Renner action. So that's one of the advantages of a virtual piano. You've probably heard me talk about the Ravenscroft 275 piano. This is a piano that is designed right here in Scottsdale, Arizona by Michael Spreeman. It is one of the most well-known pianos in jazz circles and is becoming known as one of the most prestigious pianos in the world. It takes about a year to make one. It's a father and son operation, Michael Spreeman and Andrew Spreeman. What makes these pianos unique is that the wood that they use for these pianos is actually the wood from the same wood that they use for the $1 million plus Stradivarius violins, and also the ends are terminated with pure titanium, so it's absolutely fantastic. You're looking at a Ravenscroft 275, but what you're not seeing is a Ravenscroft 275 titanium edition, and that's what they sampled, so I'll show you that in a minute. It's an absolutely phenomenal piano. It has a bell-like resonance, a very long resonance. To me, it sounds like an Imperial Bösendorfer on steroids. It's an absolutely phenomenal sound. It's great for jazz, it's great for popular music, which is one of the reasons why you have to have this piano in your vocabulary if you do jazz or popular, and also classical. It's perfect for things like Mussorgsky, Pictures at an Exhibition. I would use it for anything by Grieg. A minor concerto would be phenomenal on this. Tchaikovsky, Concerto No. 1. I would also use it for anything by Claude Debussy, anything by Ravel, anything French impressionistic would just sing on this. Anything that has a watery sound, because to me, this has kind of a watery sound as well. So it's comprised of over 17,000 sound samples. Yeah, the Ravenscroft 275 9-foot concert grand titanium edition piano, and it was the first edition, I believe, is one of the first pianos, if not one of the first 3 pianos that Michael Spreeman ever made. That was the piano that they used to sample. They used 19 discrete velocity levels to do this, and another thing that makes it unique is they used thousands of release strikes, including staccato releases, and that, I think, is one of the reasons why it lends itself very well to things like jazz, because if you think about jazz, you do a lot of staccato, and you're essentially using the piano as it should be used, as a percussion instrument. If you're using the piano as a percussion instrument, this will give you a very unique sound. It also has 22 pristine convolution reverbs. Right now it's on sale for $139, which is down from $199, which is what I paid for mine. But in any case, this, what you're looking at right now, is the titanium edition. Is it not a thing of beauty? Wow, that's just amazing. If you're thinking about putting me on your Christmas list, that would be what I want right there. Here's another picture of the Ravenscroft, not the titanium edition, but you can see that it's very custom, right? There are just a lot of different ways. You can pick colors, you can do the rosewood keys like you see on the keyboard on the right, bottom right. Here's a view under the piano. Here's a close-up of that wood from the keys. UVI Labs, the same company that does the Ravenscroft 275, also puts out an Italian Grand, what they call the Italian Grand. And what it is it's a sample of the Fazioli F305 10-foot concert grand piano. Here's another one, the 10-foot, that's right, I said 10-foot concert grand Fazioli piano. Now apparently this one has the most pleasant action any pianist has ever put their hands on. I have never put my hands on a Fazioli piano. I don't have $300,000, so I probably never will. It has I'm gonna describe it as like a nutty sound. It sounds really great for certain classical pieces. Bach played on it. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And I keep looking up past the camera because there's a speaker past the camera, and there's the logo for Mackie is this dude that's running like this, and for some reason I'm talking to the dude and I don't know why I'm doing that, so let me look at the camera instead. Sorry, no offense. Yeah, the Fazioli piano is absolutely fantastic. I'll give you an example. If you've ever heard Well-Tempered Clavier, books 1 and 2, recorded by Angela Hewitt, they were recorded on her Fazioli. Oh yeah, so now you have some homework. It's absolutely fantastic. And the one thing something that you don't get with the virtual piano, but apparently with the Fazioli pianos, the action on this thing is just like butter. It practically plays itself. I've never had the privilege of playing on a Fazioli, but everyone that I know who has played on a Fazioli can't get enough of it, and half of them bought one. So this thing is absolutely phenomenal. Now, there's another one by Native Instruments called the Grandeur. That one is also based off of a Steinway D. It has a bit of a different sound. It's not as unique a sound, I think, as the American Concert, which is made by Synthogy. It's 99 bucks, so it's a good deal. It's just a good solid piano, and if you already have Native Instruments software, you know, you just download it. Here's another one that I think is just really interesting. There's a guy named David Klavin in Germany. He rebuilt pianos, and he is an expert in pianos, and he got to thinking, you know, we've been doing pianos the same way, building them the same way for about a century and a half. Since then, we've learned an awful lot about acoustics and things like that, but we just haven't applied it. We're still building pianos the same way. I think we should apply what we've learned here. And he set out to design the perfect piano. That was what he set out to do. And so he built this upright piano, and he figured out how to overcome all the practicalities of building a giant upright piano. This longest string here is over 14 feet long. It's 3 stories tall. What you don't see here is a spiral staircase that goes on the left side in the picture and allows you to climb up to the 2nd story, which is where you would play the piano. So there's a staircase here, so that's where that goes. The sound of this thing is absolutely phenomenal. My daughter, Crystal, came over, the one that gave me the thing that's over my piano. Her boyfriend came over, and I was trying to explain to him about this giant piano, and he couldn't wrap his head around it, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna play the sound for him. And so I found one of my performances of Scriabin's Prelude Opus 90 number 1 for left hand alone and the corresponding nocturne. I played that through this piano, and it was eerie. Oh my God, you've never heard anything like it. So I guess now I have to bring that sound to you. Unfortunately, that piece is no longer under my fingers. I'm gonna have to rework that a little bit before I can, because I want to give you a live performance. I don't want to just give you like audio and have a picture of the piano in the front or something like that. So I'm gonna have to rework that piece and then perform it, and I'll run the MIDI through the giant piano, and you'll get a chance to hear how incredible that piano sounds. That's it. And that's actually David Klavin playing it on the bottom right. So that's just cool. The left side is Klavin's 450i piano. That is an overview of virtual pianos, and if you have any questions about other virtual pianos you've seen, or if you want me to do a review on one that I haven't talked about, you know, I've actually looked at and used a lot of them. There's another one, for instance, that I think is very significant if you really like Bösendorfers and that's your thing. There's a virtual piano that is of an Imperial Bösendorfer. It is an incredibly realistic reproduction of it. The problem is it's about $500 or $600, and that's the reason why it didn't make my list, because I think it's priced very highly for most people. But if that's what you need, right, it's out there. And there are some other things that are out there. So if you have questions, or if there's something that you'd like me to review, or you'd like me to talk about, just let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next video.